If you've ever watched a motorcyclist before a ride, during a ride, or God forbid, after a ride, you've probably thought to yourself, what is wrong with that person? They're talking to their bike, they're sniffing the air like a golden retriever hanging out of a car window. They just waved at a complete stranger with two fingers like some kind of secret society handshake. Well, buckle up, because today we're finally pulling back the curtain on the weird, wonderful, and occasionally unhinged things that motorcyclists do, and more importantly, why we do them. Hello everyone, my name is Carl, and welcome back to the channel where we take motorcycles very seriously and absolutely nothing else. If you're new here, I am your host, your spirit guide, your Sherpa through the beautiful and slightly deranged world of two wheels. And if you've been here a while, you already know what we're about, and I love you for it, you beautiful weirdo. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say this video is going to be a little bit different. We're not reviewing a bike today. We're not arguing about which exhaust sounds better, though we could do that all day. Today, we are celebrating the culture, the quirks, the deeply irrational yet completely understandable behavior that separates riders from regular human beings. Because let's be honest, motorcyclists are not regular human beings. We chose to commute on something with no roof, no airbags, and approximately zero protection from the elements, because it feels incredible. So yeah, we're a little different. Now let's get into it. Strange thing. Number 1, the biker wave. Let's start with the most universally observed and universally misunderstood thing that motorcyclists do, the biker wave. If you drive a car, you have almost certainly seen this. Two motorcyclists approaching each other from opposite directions, and as they pass, one or both of them extends their left hand downward, two fingers pointed at the road like they're trying to cast a very low-energy spell on the asphalt. And if you're a car driver watching this happen, you're probably thinking, do these people know each other? Is that a gang signal? Should I be concerned? No. Here's what's actually happening. The biker wave is one of the oldest and most genuine traditions in motorcycle culture, and it goes back further than most people realize. The story that gets thrown around a lot is that it started with Arthur Davidson and William Harley themselves back in the early 1900s, when the two founders passed each other on the road and waved. Whether or not that's 100% historically verified, I honestly don't care because it's a great story and I'm keeping it. The two fingers pointed down have a meaning, and that meaning is two wheels down, which is shorthand for ride safe. Keep the rubber side on the road, don't die today. It's a blessing from one stranger to another. And look, I know that sounds dramatic, but riding a motorcycle creates this immediate sense of kinship with other riders that is genuinely hard to explain to people who don't ride. When you're out there on two wheels, you are part of a very specific tribe of people who all made the same slightly questionable decision to get on a motorcycle, and there's a mutual respect in that. Now here's where it gets interesting, and here's something that causes actual debate in motorcycle circles, which, trust me, is saying something because motorcyclists will debate absolutely anything. Not everyone waves back, and the etiquette around this is a whole thing. Some riders only wave at other riders on the same type of bike. Some Harley guys won't wave at sport bike riders. Some sport bike guys are going too fast to wave at anyone. Adventure bike riders wave at literally everything, including farm animals, and I respect that deeply. And then there's the head nod, which is the cool, low-effort cousin of the wave, typically deployed when you're in a corner and extending your hand feels like a genuinely bad idea. The head nod says, I see you, I respect you, I'm also going too fast to do anything else right now. If you're new to riding and you're not sure whether to wave, just wave. Wave at everyone. The worst thing that happens is someone doesn't wave back, and then you get to feel morally superior for the rest of the day. It's a win. Strange thing. Number 2, the pre-ride inspection. Okay, so picture this. You're in a parking lot. You're about to get on your bike and go for a ride, and you spend about 5 minutes just walking around the thing, crouching down, poking at tires, wiggling the mirrors, checking the chain, squinting at stuff. Maybe you press on the front forks a little bit. Maybe you give the rear suspension a little bounce. A person walking by watches all of this and thinks, that man has lost his mind. That man has not lost his mind. That man is doing his T-clocks check, and it might be the single most important habit any rider can build. T-clock stands for tires and wheels, controls, lights, oil and fluids, chassis, and stands. It's a pre-ride inspection checklist that the MSF, which is the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, teaches to every new rider, and the ones who actually stick with it are the riders who tend to stick around, if you know what I mean. Here's the thing that non-riders don't understand. A car can often run with a slow leak in a tire, a burnt-out brake light, or low oil for days or weeks before something catastrophic happens. On a motorcycle, any one of those things can absolutely ruin your afternoon in the worst possible way. Tires are maybe the most critical. Your entire contact with the road is 2 patches of rubber roughly the size of your palm. That's it. That's all that's standing between you and a very unpleasant conversation with the pavement. So yes, we check the tire pressure. We check the tread. We look for cracks, foreign objects, weird bulges, anything that looks like it doesn't belong there. I'll be honest with you, I found screws in my tire during a pre-ride check that I absolutely would not have noticed until things went very badly if I hadn't looked. The pre-ride inspection is not paranoia. It's not neurosis. It's just what you do when you are responsible for your own survival on a vehicle that does not forgive mistakes. And also, if your chain looks like something you found at the bottom of a lake, please lube it. Please. Strange thing. Number 3, talking to their motorcycle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the vault on this one because I think we all need to just be honest with each other. Motorcyclists talk to their bikes. I'm not talking about a casual offhand comment here and there. I'm talking full conversations. Encouragement before a hard ride. Apologies after a drop. Negotiations when the bike won't start on a cold morning. You think I'm exaggerating. I am not exaggerating, even slightly. There is a psychological phenomenon called anthropomorphism, which is a very long word that means humans assign human characteristics to non-human things. And motorcyclists do this on an almost industrial scale. Your bike has a name. Your bike has a personality. Your bike is moody and temperamental and sometimes runs perfectly, and sometimes decides that today is not the day and you just have to accept that. But here's why this actually makes sense beyond just the obvious fact that riders are deeply unhinged in the most lovable way possible. The relationship between a rider and their motorcycle is genuinely unlike the relationship between a driver and their car. When you ride, the bike is an extension of your body in a way that a car simply isn't. You feel everything, every crack in the road, every shift in weight, every degree of lean angle. The bike communicates with you through vibration and sound and the way it responds to your inputs. And over time, you learn to read it. You know what your bike sounds like when it's happy. You know what it sounds like when something's off. And that creates a bond that, sometimes leads to you telling your motorcycle, "Come on, baby, we've got a long way to go today. Don't judge us. You name your cars too." We've all seen the person with the Honda Civic named Cindy. We know. Strange thing. Number 4, obsessively checking tire pressure. Yes, we already talked about tires in the pre-ride inspection section, but tire pressure deserves its own entry because the level of attention that experienced riders pay to their tire pressure goes so far beyond what any normal person would consider reasonable. We are talking about riders who have a dedicated tire pressure gauge that they prefer over all other tire pressure gauges. Riders who know the exact PSI their front and rear tires should be at for different riding conditions. Riders who check their tire pressure, not just before the ride, but after the ride, just to see what happened. Riders who, and I cannot stress this enough, have opinions about which brand of tire pressure gauge is most accurate. I know how this sounds. I know. But here's the physics of it, and yes, we're doing physics again, just like old times. Tire pressure has a direct and significant effect on how a motorcycle handles, how quickly the tire warms up, how much grip you have in corners, how the bike brakes, and ultimately how likely you are to keep the rubber side down. Running even 5 psi low in a sport bike tire can completely change how the bike feels in a fast corner. Running too high and you've reduced your contact patch and now you're sliding around on what essentially amounts to a balloon. For riders who spend time on the track, tire pressure is an obsession that borders on religion. You'll see guys checking pressure between sessions with the kind of focus and gravity that most people reserve for major life decisions. Because at the track, it is a major life decision. Literally. On the street, it's a little less critical, but the habit carries over, and honestly, it should. Check your tire pressure, people. All of you. Car drivers, too. You're all running around low and you don't even know it. Strange thing. Number 5, refusing to wash their bike before a ride. This one is going to confuse you at first, and then it's going to make complete sense, and then you're going to feel a little bit silly for never having thought of it. Why do motorcyclists wash their bike after a ride, but almost never before one? Because washing the bike before a ride is how you end up with a wet bike on a dry road, and water and motorcycles have a complicated relationship that does not always end well. Here's the specific concern. When you wash a motorcycle, water gets into places. It gets into the brake calipers. It gets into the chain. It gets into electrical connections. And if you take that freshly washed bike straight out onto the road before everything has had a chance to dry out properly, you are introducing a variable into your ride that you did not need to introduce. Wet brake rotors can temporarily reduce braking performance. A wet chain that hasn't been relubed is a chain that is eating itself. Water in the wrong electrical connection can cause all kinds of exciting and unwelcome surprises. The move is to wash the bike after the ride. Let it dry completely. Relube the chain. Make sure everything is dry and happy before the next outing. It's not that we don't care about having a clean bike. Some of us care deeply and embarrassingly about having a clean bike. It's that we care about having a clean bike that also works properly. There is also a secondary thing happening here, which is that some riders are genuinely superstitious about washing the bike before a ride. The theory is that the universe interprets a clean motorcycle as an invitation for rain. And look, I'm not saying I believe that. I'm also not saying I don't believe that. What I'm saying is that I've washed my bike the morning before a ride exactly one time, and it rained so hard I had to pull under a bridge for 45 minutes, and I have never made that mistake again. Strange thing, number 6, sniffing the air while riding. Okay, this one is genuinely hard to explain to non-riders without sounding completely unhinged, but here we go. Motorcyclists pay an extraordinary amount of attention to what the air smells like while they're riding, and not just in a, oh, that's a nice smell kind of way. In a deeply practical, safety-relevant, this information matters kind of way. The smell of cut grass means someone is mowing a lawn nearby, which means there's likely grass clippings on the road around the next corner, which means reduced traction. The smell of coolant or burning oil means a car in front of you may be running hot or leaking, which is information you want before you ride through whatever they're dropping on the road. The smell of diesel is a big one. Diesel spills are notoriously slippery, significantly more so than regular gasoline, and your nose can alert you to one before you see it. The smell of rain on dry pavement, that gorgeous petrichor smell, means the road is about to get very slick very quickly. And then there's the purely recreational side of this. One of the things that riders talk about when they try to explain why they love riding is the sensory experience of it. In a car, you are essentially sealed in a box, climate-controlled, sound-dampened, smell-proofed. You are watching the world go by like it's a movie. On a motorcycle, you are in it. You smell the pine trees in the mountains. You smell the barbecue joints as you pass through a small town. You smell the ocean before you can see it. You smell the rain, the earth, the gasoline, the world. It sounds poetic, and it is poetic, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Strange thing. Number 7, dragging a knee or pretending to. If you have ever seen a motorcyclist on a twisty road hang off the side of their bike dramatically, sliding their inside knee toward the pavement like they're auditioning for a MotoGP highlight reel, you have witnessed one of the great dual-purpose behaviors in all of motorcycling. Because depending on who is doing it, knee dragging is either a highly technical and purposeful riding technique, or it is pure, uncut, concentrated showing off. And the gap between those two things is enormous. Here's the legitimate version. Knee dragging as a technique originated on the racetrack, where riders discovered that hanging their body off the inside of the bike through a corner allowed the motorcycle to stay more upright while still maintaining a tight cornering line. More upright bike means more tire contact patch, means more grip, means faster cornering. Riders like Valentino Rossi, who I am contractually obligated to mention at least once per video, turned this into an art form. The knee down on a racetrack is a byproduct of correct body position at extreme cornering speeds. It is also used by experienced track riders as a proximity sensor, a way of knowing exactly how close the bike is to its limit of lean. On the street, at sane speeds, the mechanics are a little different. You're not going fast enough for the knee to actually touch the ground naturally, so what you're seeing is a rider who has learned the body positioning technique from track riding and is applying it on the street because it genuinely does improve corner feel and body position habits, even if the knee never actually gets close to the road. And then there are the guys who just really, really want to drag me on a public road because it looks insanely cool and they've watched too many onboard lap videos. And I absolutely include my past self in this category, and I will not elaborate further. The important thing to know is that in either case, the rider is not falling off their motorcycle. They are in complete control. They have intentionally positioned their body that way. It looks terrifying and it looks amazing, and those two things are not mutually exclusive. Strange thing number 8, never parking in the middle of a space goad, any motorcycle parking area, or honestly just any parking lot where bikes are allowed to park in regular car spaces. And you will notice something immediately. The motorcycles are almost never in the center of the space. They're at the back, nose pointing outward toward the lane of traffic, tail tucked against the curb or the front of the space. And if you're a car driver, this looks bizarre. Why would you park like that? Why are you not centered up like a normal person? Let me count the reasons. First, visibility. A motorcycle parked nose out is dramatically easier to see than one parked nose in. When you're backing out of a parking space in a car, your blind spots are significant. A motorcycle parked conventionally, tucked in a space nose first, is almost invisible until you've already partially backed into it. Parked nose out, the whole bike is visible and you can see it and avoid it. This is not just courtesy, this is survival. Second, escape. When a motorcyclist needs to leave a parking space, they need to be able to roll the bike forward under power. Motorcycles do not like going backward. They are not designed to go backward. The engine doesn't drive them in reverse. The brakes don't work the same way. And trying to muscle a 400 to 500 pound motorcycle backward in a tight space is a great way to drop it. Parking nose out means you can just start the bike and roll straight out. Clean, easy, dignified. Third, and this is the one that car drivers really don't think about, parking on a slope. Cars have parking brakes, motorcycles have side stands, and a side stand on a slope pointing the wrong direction is just a countdown timer to your bike being on its side. Experienced riders are constantly reading the angle and surface of where they're parking and positioning accordingly. There's also a whole subculture of very precise, very deliberate motorcycle parking that involves finding the perfect piece of flat, solid ground positioned at exactly the right angle, accounting for the direction of the wind, the camber of the road, and probably the phase of the moon. Some of us are a little particular about it. You could even say some of us have a problem. Moving on. Strange thing. Number 9, refusing to sell their bike. And here we are. The final strange thing. The one that non-riders find most baffling and that riders find most obvious. The complete and total inability of a motorcyclist to sell their motorcycle. I don't care if the bike doesn't run. I don't care if it hasn't run since 2007. I don't care if it's literally just a collection of parts held together by ambition and zip ties in the corner of the garage. It's not for sale. It's going to get fixed up. It's a project. It has sentimental value. It was my first bike. It was my dad's bike. I'm going to restore it someday. Leave it alone. The relationship that riders have with their bikes is, as we have established throughout this video, not entirely rational. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the absolutely tortured decision-making process that happens when someone suggests that maybe, possibly, it might be time to let one go. I have met riders who own 7 motorcycles. Not because they ride all 7 of them, because they could not bring themselves to sell any of the first 6 when they bought the next one. The garage becomes a museum, a shrine, a monument to every chapter of their riding life. And honestly, I get it. I get it completely. Every bike tells a story. The first bike you ever owned, the one you dropped 6 times learning to ride and then somehow grew completely attached to anyway. The track bike that was objectively a disaster but went sideways in a corner one perfect afternoon and felt like nothing else in the world. The bike you bought because you saw someone else riding one and needed it immediately with 0 additional research. Which, by the way, is how most of us buy motorcycles, let's just be honest about that. Selling a motorcycle is not a financial transaction. It is a minor emotional crisis. It requires weeks of convincing yourself it's the right decision, a few days of listing it and immediately feeling regret, and a strong possibility that you will text the buyer 3 months later asking if they'd consider selling it back. This is not a character flaw. This is just what happens when an inanimate object becomes part of who you are. And if you think that's strange, well, you've never ridden a motorcycle. And if you haven't ridden a motorcycle, With respect, what are you even doing? Go take the MSF course. Seriously, go do it. Your whole life is about to change. And that is going to wrap up today's video, my beautiful two-wheeled degenerates. 9 strange things that motorcyclists do. Finally explained. Did I miss any? Because I know I missed some. Drop them in the comments below. I genuinely read every single one, even the ones that are just people arguing with each other about whether Harleys are real motorcycles, which, by the way, they are. Let's all take a breath. If you liked what you saw today, smash that like button. It helps the channel more than you probably realize. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of content, and check out the links below for the Discord, the merch store, and the giveaway, because yes, we are still giving away motorcycles, because that is simply the kind of operation we're running over here. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and for the love of all things holy, check your tire pressure.